She is not going to tell you, not directly, not with words, not in any way that makes her visible enough to risk what happens if you do not feel the same way. But her body is already telling you right now, in the interactions you are already having, in the moments you are sitting inside without the slightest awareness of what is broadcasting from the other side of the table. Sexual obsession in a woman does not look the way most men imagine it looks. It is not dramatic. It is not declared. It is not the obvious, unmistakable signal that leaves no room for misreading. It is five specific, invisible behavioral signatures produced by a nervous system that is trying to manage something it cannot control. And every single one of them is visible to the man who knows what he is looking for. By the end of this video, you will be that man. But before we go into the five signs, there is something you need to understand about what female sexual obsession actually is at the neurological level. Because once you understand what is driving these behaviors from the inside, reading them from the outside becomes effortless. And what I am about to show you is going to reframe the last several months of interactions with at least one woman in your life. Stay with me, because the fifth sign is the one that is happening right now in real time in your most recent interactions with her, and it is the one that is impossible to fake. What is actually happening inside her? When a woman becomes sexually obsessed with a man, her brain enters a state that neuroscientist and psychiatrist Dr. Gail Saltz describes as neurochemically indistinguishable from addiction. Dopamine, the brain's primary reward and motivation chemical, floods the ventral tegmental area every time she thinks about him. Serotonin levels shift in a pattern associated with obsessive compulsive rumination. She thinks about him over and over in a loop she did not choose and cannot stop. She is not deciding to think about him. Her neurochemistry is compelling her to. At the same time, her prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational decision-making and self-regulation, begins to go partially offline. The same regions that would normally evaluate a situation clearly and produce measured responses are being overridden by the limbic system. She is not operating from logic when she is around him. She is operating from a part of her brain that is older, faster, and completely immune to her conscious control. The result is a woman who is managing something enormous in her nervous system while trying to maintain the appearance of someone who is managing nothing at all. And the management effort is exactly what produces the five signs I am about to describe. Because when the internal experience is that large and that uncontrolled, perfect containment is neurologically impossible, something always leaks through, always. Here are the five places it leaks. Sign one, she remembers things she should not remember. This is the first sign, and it is the one most men walk past completely because it does not look like attraction. It looks like attentiveness. It looks like a good friend being thoughtful. But there is a specific quality to the remembering that distinguishes ordinary attentiveness from the memory patterns of a nervous system that has been running someone on continuous loop. When a woman is sexually obsessed with a man, her brain has been processing him constantly, between interactions, during conversations with other people, at 2 in the morning when she should be sleeping. The dopamine reward system keeps returning to him the way an addict's attention keeps returning to the substance. And this continuous processing means that the details of him get encoded with an emotional depth that ordinary memory cannot match. So she remembers the specific thing you said 3 conversations ago. Not because she took notes, because her brain was replaying the interaction for 48 hours afterward, and the detail got burned in at a neurological depth that only emotionally significant material achieves. She remembers what you ordered the last time you were somewhere together. She references something from 6 weeks ago as though it were yesterday. The tell is in the specificity. Ordinary care produces general memory. Obsession produces granular memory. The detail of what you were wearing when you said something that mattered to her. The exact word you used in a particular sentence. The quality of how you laughed at something she said. If she is remembering you at that level of detail, her brain has been spending significant time with you when you are not there. And the reason her brain has been spending that time with you is the same reason the dopamine system keeps returning to any source of intense reward, because you have become one. Sign two, her behavior changes before she sees you. Pay close attention now, because this sign happens before the interaction begins, before she sees you, before you have said a single word, and it is completely, entirely, utterly beyond her control. Research on anticipatory dopamine release shows that the brain's reward system does not only activate in the presence of a reward, it activates in anticipation of one, which means that a woman who has been running you on continuous neurological loop begins to experience the dopamine response the moment she knows she is going to see you, not when she sees you, when she knows it is about to happen. The behavioral signatures of this anticipatory activation are specific and observable. She takes longer getting ready, not dramatically longer in a way that announces itself, but she checks herself in the mirror one more time before she would have done before you were a factor. She chooses what she is wearing with slightly more consideration than the occasion would otherwise demand. She is slightly more animated than her baseline before she arrives. There is a specific quality of energy in her that her friends might notice as her seeming excited without being able to identify why. She is not consciously preparing to impress you. Her dopamine activated nervous system is producing preparation behavior automatically, the same way a person's appetite activates before the food arrives based on the smell alone. The reward cue, the knowledge that you will be present, has triggered the approach motivation system before the actual encounter has begun. The most invisible version of this sign is what happens to her attention in a group context when she knows you are going to arrive. She does not look at the door every 30 seconds in an obvious way, but her awareness is oriented toward it. She knows the moment you walk in before anyone announces your presence, because her nervous system has been tracking the environment for you since before you got there. If you have ever noticed a woman seeming to know you arrived before she could reasonably have seen you, her nervous system told her, not instinct. Anticipatory dopamine activation. Sign 3, she recreates physical proximity without touching. This is the sign that women themselves are least aware of because it operates entirely below the level of conscious intention, and it is one of the most consistent behavioral signatures of female sexual obsession documented in the research on interpersonal behavior. When a woman is sexually drawn to a man, her nervous system runs a continuous proximity-seeking behavior, not the overt proximity-seeking of someone who moves toward you and makes their presence obvious, something far subtler. Something that positions her in your physical space without any apparent reason for the positioning. She finds herself standing next to you in group contexts when there was no practical reason for her to be specifically there. She chooses the seat that puts her closest to you without appearing to have made a choice. In a room that has multiple viable positions, she is consistently in the quadrant of the room that contains you. She orients her body toward you during conversations that are nominally with someone else. None of this is decided. Behavioral research on proximity seeking in attraction contexts shows that physical orientation toward a desired person is an automatic, premotor behavior driven by the same reward circuitry that produces anticipatory activation. Her body moves toward you the way a plant moves toward light, not through decision, through the automatic response of a system that has learned where its reward is located. The invisible version of this sign is in her feet. Social psychologists consistently identify foot direction as one of the least controlled nonverbal behaviors, precisely because almost nobody monitors their feet the way they monitor their face and hands. Where her feet point when she is standing in a group is where her nervous system actually wants to be. If they are pointed at you while her body appears engaged with someone else, she is containing something in her upper body that her lower body is not equipped to contain. But now I need to stop for a moment because what comes next is the sign that most men find the most confusing when they encounter it. The one that looks like its complete opposite. The one that has caused more men to walk away from a woman who is obsessed with them than any other signal on this list. And understanding it is going to reframe some of the most significant interactions of your recent past. If what I am describing is making things click for you right now, take 2 seconds and hit the like button, because this is exactly the information most men spend years looking for without knowing what they are searching for. And every person who engages with this video helps the right man find it at exactly the right moment. Now, let me show you the fourth sign. Sign 4. She suddenly goes quiet or pulls back. I told you this one looks like its opposite, and I meant it. When a woman who has been warm and engaged and consistently attentive suddenly becomes quieter, more reserved, slightly less available than she was last week, when she seems to need more space, to take longer to respond, to hold herself back in a way that was not there before. Most men read this as cooling interest, as the beginning of withdrawal, as evidence that something has shifted in the wrong direction. In many cases, it is the precise opposite. Here is the neuroscience of why. When the dopamine reward response becomes intense enough, the prefrontal cortex begins its attempt to compensate, to regulate the system that is running out of control. The amygdala, partially offline during intense attraction, occasionally reasserts itself with the anxiety of exposure, of having felt something this intensely in the direction of someone whose reciprocal feeling is not yet confirmed. What she is managing in those quieter moments is not reduced interest. It is increased vulnerability. The pull toward you has become strong enough that her self-protective systems have activated in response to it. She is not withdrawing from you. She is managing the size of what she feels for you against the risk of showing it before she knows it is safe to show. Research on what is called approach avoidance conflict in romantic contexts shows that this pattern of simultaneous high approach motivation and high avoidance motivation produces exactly this behavioral signature. She wants to move toward you and is simultaneously afraid of the exposure that moving toward you requires. The result looks like ambivalence. It is not ambivalence. It is the behavioral output of a nervous system managing something enormous. The tell that distinguishes withdrawal from management is in whether the warmth returns. Real withdrawal is directional. It moves consistently away and does not come back without a significant change in context. Management oscillates. The quieter period is followed by a return of warmth that is slightly more intense than it was before, because the underlying drive did not go anywhere during the management period. It built. And when the containment breaks, what comes through is slightly more of what was already there. If you have seen this oscillation in someone, the warmth, then the quiet, then the warmth returning slightly warmer than before, you have been watching a woman manage an obsession she is not yet ready to declare. Sign 5, she tells you things she has not told anyone else. Here is the one I told you was impossible to fake, the one that is happening right now in your most recent interactions with her. Sexual obsession does not stay in the body. The same dopamine serotonin neurochemical environment that produces compulsive thinking and physical proximity seeking also produces a specific compulsion toward disclosure. The desire to be known by the person the brain has fixated on is a direct output of the same reward circuitry that drives every other obsession behavior. The brain wants more contact with its source of reward, and the deepest form of contact available between two people is the contact of genuine mutual knowing. So she tells you something she has not told other people. Not necessarily something dramatic, something real, something that requires her to be visible in a way she is not usually visible with people who do not have this specific significance to her. A fear that she keeps to herself, a version of a story that contains more truth than the version she tells in social contexts. Something about who she is beneath the person she manages presenting to the world. The tell is in the quality of the disclosure, not the content. Real friendship produces real disclosure over time, but the disclosure produced by obsession has a specific quality. It arrives earlier than the depth of the relationship would warrant. It is accompanied by a brief, visible self-consciousness immediately after it arrives, the specific micro-expression of a person who has just said something more than they planned to say and is now watching to see what you will do with it. And it tends to arrive in moments of physical proximity or genuine attentional presence, the moments when her prefrontal cortex is most offline and the reward system is most active. She is not deciding to tell you these things. Her nervous system is seeking the deepest form of contact available to it with the person it has fixated on, and the deepest contact is being known. If she has told you something in recent weeks that you later realized she did not seem to tell other people, you are receiving a signal from her nervous system that her words have not yet found a way to express. Her obsession was speaking in the only language that felt safe enough to use. Here is what I need you to take from everything I have just shown you. These 5 signs are not things she is doing for you, not performances, not deliberate communications. They are the involuntary output of a brain that has been neurochemically altered by your presence in her life. The granular memory, the anticipatory preparation, the unconscious proximity seeking, the oscillation between warmth and protective withdrawal, the compulsive disclosure. Each one is her dopamine system leaking through the containment she is trying to maintain. She is obsessed with you. She has probably been obsessed with you for longer than you have had any idea. And the reason you did not see it is not because it was not visible. It is because nobody ever showed you what female sexual obsession actually looks like from the outside before it reaches the point of declaration. Now you know what it looks like. And more importantly, you know what it means when you see it, not as a game, not as something to exploit, as information about what is actually happening in the space between you and someone who has been carrying something enormous in her nervous system and waiting without knowing she is waiting for the moment when you show her you can receive it. The question is not whether she is obsessed with you. The question is whether you are the man who knows what to do when she is. Subscribe to this channel right now, because this is where we tell the complete truth about what happens in the female nervous system, the real science, the real behavioral signatures, the things that most people are not willing to say, because saying them clearly requires going somewhere most channels choose not to go. Like this video and share it with someone who has been misreading these signals in someone close to him. Because the woman he thinks is cooling off might be the woman his nervous system has been waiting for, and he deserves to know the difference. The next video goes even deeper. Do not miss it.